over to Dr. Gregory, who will introduce the panel and go take it from there.
Okay, and what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to ask our panelists to go in alphabetical order, Brent, Gary, and then Raj, with your personal introduction, telling us, of course, who you are, your time in the industry, what your responsibilities are, and your perspective on students preparing themselves for careers in the industry. So Brent, if you would please take it away.
All right. Excuse me. Hello, everybody. Thanks, Doc. My name is Brent Reynolds. I'm currently Vice President of Resort Operations for Holiday and Club Vacations, which is currently a 28 resort network, timeshare network, operating in strategic partnership with Intercontinental Hotels Group, which we have the exclusive marketing arrangement to introduce the world to timeshare and vacation ownership on behalf of Intercontinental Hotels Group under the Holiday Inn name. My remit is, again, here 28 resorts, close to 3,000 team members at full strength, which nobody is quite at the moment, and helping guide strategic and tactical operations on a daily basis and partner closely with, obviously, the sales organization. So I've heard everything that Doc Terry was going over. There is absolutely interconnection between all of those topics that he was covering. I've got 31 years in the industry. Started out in hotel operations, small Holiday Inn in Northeastern Ohio. Career progressed. I worked also for Intercontinental Hotels Group, doing some brand development there, some guest experience development, helped launch a new brand called Even Hotels on the IHG brand bar, before finding a new passion in vacation ownership with the Wilson family. And for those of you who know your hospitality history, Kemmons Wilson was actually the founder of Holiday Inn back in 1952, and his family is still the proud owners of Holiday Inn Club Vacations. So I've stayed very close to the Holiday Inn brand somehow through my whole career, and it's not really a mystery. It's a fantastic brand with worldwide notoriety, and serves the largest segment of the hospitality consumer market out there in the mid-scale market, upper mid-scale. So I've seen quite a bit. I can tell you that everything that Doc Terry and what you'll hear from the docs today are absolutely things that I use on a daily basis. So these career tracks are very relative and relevant. I think probably now more than ever, I've had to pull out skills that I haven't thought about for a while, as we're having to do so much more with so much less, as we've had to cut staff in order to preserve cash flow, facing new problems we hadn't before, where we had reliable market demand from certain segments, and we got very comfortable with those. Well, those have been disrupted. And so now, in order to realign and meet shareholder expectations, we've had to regroup with sales and pivot and really think about business disciplines in applying them in new ways, and unfortunately in very, very fast and very pivotal ways. So I think this is an absolutely amazing track. And to Doc Terry's point, this will be a resounding. We will recover this. We've seen it in all of the past recovery. It takes a little bit of time. But we will certainly be doing something different as a result of the most current events, and so staying up to date and relevant in these teachings are what can help you be successful in the industry. Thanks, Doc.
All right, Gary.
Hello, everybody. My name is Gary Gottling. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing of High Regency Grand Cypress in the Lake Buena Vista area. I've had the good pleasure of being invited by Dr. Gregory several years now, a couple times a year, to come over and be a guest presenter to her classes there, and I'm thrilled to do so as always. I've been working in the hotel business since 1978 and worked for Holiday Inn Mart Plaza, downtown Chicago is where I got my start. My first job was at the front desk, checking people in and out. and worked my way up to a banquet manager job for 6 years. And my first job with Hyatt was 1984 at Hyatt Regency Atlanta as a banquet manager, and then to convention service manager, sales manager, and then a director of sales 6 different times. So I've worked for Hyatt at 9 different properties. I've been very fortunate that after I left Chicago, I haven't had to shovel snow since then, including 6 years at the Hyatt Regency Maui. But I think my story is, as I tell Dr. Gregory's students, that it's a great industry. I would do it all over again. Both my grown kids work in the hotel business and hospitality business, Hyatt, of course. But it's a great industry to be in. It's what attracted me to it is that there's always another level to learn, another level to be promoted to. There's not the same job 2 days in a row. Something's always different, especially now also. So if you're looking for a long-term career, the hospitality industry is definitely that opportunity you'll have, and will continue to, especially if you want to travel. If you are able to speak multiple languages, that sure helps too, which I'm not. I wish I was. And if you're able to be geographically relocatable, it definitely will accelerate your career. So you're in the right industry. You're definitely in the right town to do so. So I'm happy to be on board here with this Zoom call.
Thank you very much, Gary. Raj, we'll go to you next, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Raj Mehta. I am currently the Director of Rooms for Universal's Aventura Hotel. I have been with Lowe's Hotels at Universal Orlando for coming up. I'm about to hit my 15-year anniversary, actually. My current responsibilities, I oversee the rooms division for Universal's Aventura Hotel, so that'll include the front desk, housekeeping, recreation, and luggage services. I myself am a Rosen alumni, so I've been speaking at Doc Terry's classes for about 4 or 5 years now. So I can tell you this lodging track is something that I'm very passionate about, because this is where my career, started as a Rosen student. I actually started at Hard Rock Hotel right over here in Universal as a front desk agent, much like Gary, checking people in. Had a wonderful experience there, worked all my hourly positions there, until I moved across the street to Lowe's Portofino Bay Hotel for my first management roles, and then did 3 different management roles there before I went back to Hard Rock Hotel to be the front office manager and oversee the department where it all began. So that was a fun experience. Then I took the step over to our regional offices to oversee reservations, as well as part of the development team for future builds. And so I was on the development team and project team for Universal's Aventura Hotel. And that's where I really developed a passion, getting to see, a property built from the ground up. So when the opportunity came, I applied to be the rooms director, and I was fortunate enough to be granted that opportunity. And now I get to open the hotel and still be a part of this wonderful hotel. For anyone out there right now who's looking to have a hotel, a lodging industry career, it is a great career path. I'm very passionate about it. Yes, we are going through a little bit of a challenging time right now, but we have had these challenging times before. And I think as an industry, if we just react to it as we have, and I think we're going to touch on some of this later, in ways we have in the past, it's going to come back, as Doc Terry said, 90, 95%, and we'll get there. And then just lastly, some things that I want to mention for students preparing themselves to get in this industry. There's 3 things I really like to emphasize that can really help you. One is have a positive attitude. No matter what's going on, if you maintain that positive attitude, it's going to reflect, and, people are going to see that. 2, keep an open mind. I know a lot of times when you get into a role, or you've been doing a role a certain way, having an open mind and thinking of new ways of doing things, that's always going to be helpful, and always just being willing to do whatever it takes to get the job done. So that's all I got.
Thank you, Raj. And again, thank you, Brent and Gary, for being here. So all of you on the phone, you can see we've got some really great industry participants, and you've heard it from all of us before, but not only are they speakers and individuals that we're familiar with and bring great industry expertise and experience and insights and all of that. These are people that, as Dr. Mejia mentioned, we have all had relationships with for several years. And so we're super fortunate that we're located where we are and that we've got the reputation that we have, and you guys are all coming into all of that too. So thanks everybody for being here, and especially to our panelists. What we're gonna do over the next 25 minutes or so is a bit of a moderated panel. So I have a couple of thought starters, if you will, that I've shared with our panelists. And this will take us through the next couple of minutes. If you have, those of you who are participating, have questions, you'll have an opportunity to interact with the panelists in the breakout sessions. You can certainly also forward those questions through the chat stuff. So let's go ahead and get started with the panel. So we are certainly living in unprecedented times, and with the current pandemic, COVID-19, the lodging industry has survived economic recessions of the 80s, 2008, 2009, catastrophes like 9/11, and periodic increases and declines in local and regional global travel. Generally speaking, so all that to say, we've kind of been here before, although maybe not in the scenario that we're in now, but 9/11 didn't look like the recession either. So generally speaking, and from our industry partners' perspective, and I'd like to start with Raj, how would or can you compare the current environment to historical milestones that disrupted the lodging industry in the past?
Yeah, certainly. I think, you know, of some of the things you mentioned in the past, I think what this one probably most similarly to me replicates that of 9/11, in which this is going to require permanent change in our industry. And we as an industry are going to have to develop and pivot in ways that we haven't had before. You know, this is a virus, just like in 9/11, after 9/11, we had to implement new safety procedures and new precautions. You know, for this, it's health safety. It's very similar. It's just health safety instead of, it's a different kind of safety. So things like social distancing and, you know, mask wearing, these are the type of things that are probably realistically going to be here to stay for quite some time. And we as industry leaders need to do a good job of putting forward those efforts so that people can feel safe to travel again, because that's really how we're going to get down the road to recovery. You know, I'll be forthcoming. I know a friend of mine who owns a couple of bars, as soon as he was able to open the doors, he had no social distancing. He let everyone, he opened the floodgates, and things like that, unfortunately could be, contributing towards this spike we're seeing right now. And so that's why us as industry leaders need to make sure that we are bringing this back safely and at the appropriate pace, so that way it can get back faster.
Fantastic. So I'm going to give all of our panelists opportunity to speak on that too, but I'm going to introduce or ask Gary to introduce his perspective on the same type of question from the perspective, if you will, of sales. So what does it look like in your world now, and how would you relate it back to previous issues that we had before? And then Brent, I'll bring you in there as well.
There's nothing to compare this to. That's my thoughts. This is the most devastating downturn in business that I've ever been through. Will it come out of it? Absolutely. So I don't have anything to compare it to except for a 6-month-long hurricane that we're going through right now. And that's what it feels like. But what we do is that you really build your stronger relationships with customers. We understand that so many of our group meetings are medical related, or have faculty who are speakers who are unable to come to the meetings, which means the meetings then can't happen. So we have provided all of our groups with a health and safety procedures that Hyatt has given us to go through and implement at the property. So that's one thing, try to ensure that if they do hold a meeting with us of our social distancing for event space, the cleanliness that we do for our rooms, for our lobbies, how each employee gets tested every day when we come into work, the protective gear that we all wear when we're at the hotel. But what we've learned is that we even develop even stronger relationships with customers because they're in the same boat as we are. They've been furloughed, they've been reduced. But our main objective is to rebook them. So if the recovery for my staff is that if I'm taking off hundreds of groups off the books because of this, how many of those can I rebook? How many of those can I then go back to the customer and say, we understand you can't come, as in, force majeure, you can't, the meeting's not going to happen. When is your next open meeting? When is the next open year? And so my staff, which is very reduced, very limited, severely reduced, that's what we do all day long is from the cancellations is all about recovery. And you do develop, and most, 95% of the customers are great customers where they understand and they will rebook with you because they know the financial hardships that cancellations of their size have done to employees who are not working. So for us, it's really about recovery right now. And do I see this coming out of it? Sure. I think it's going to take medicine to do so. I think it's going to take some kind of a vaccine or some kind of a cure to do so. Luckily, for all of us in the Orlando area, our leisure business is still happening. We run a decent amount of leisure business on weekends, not so much during the week. And that's where, on the marketing side of my job, that's where I shift my marketing into that leisure business, more social media, staycations all day long. Every time I'm in a lobby and I see a customer, I say, "Where are you from?" "Oh, I'm from Winter Garden." "Okay, where are you from?" "I'm from Winter Park." "I'm from, I live downtown. I live in Windermere." And that's who our customers are. So you've got Raj, you said the word pivot, and that pivot is exactly what we have to do to try to attract those customers in the summertime who normally would be coming down from the Northeast or international. Summertime, all the wholesale business international would be right now too. Which is non-existent. So ours is to really pivot into the local community and try to capture as much of that leisure business and then rebook the group business that has canceled.
Thank you, Gary. Both very good perspectives from two different parts of the business. Now, Brent, if you want to chime in, particularly from the vacation ownership or the timeshare perspective, where that's, for those on the call, it's an owned product. It's almost as if somebody were to purchase their second vacation home, just to make it really simple. So a different type of guest rather than a renter. This is somebody that's owning and wanting to use what they purchase. So let's hear from you on that, Brent, please.
No, thanks, Doc. So this is interesting, right? This is an interesting business model. So having been in the hotel side, I remember the devastating effect of 9/11, in particular on our business. It was a little business hotel. And I think most of the hotel business is driven by independent business travelers, right? It's corporate dollars that are actually driving the weekday stays that are the real bread and butter of the majority of hotels. A little bit different here in Orlando, a bit more. But when you think about the globe, you think about the country and think about the globe, it's being driven by business travel, and the leisure travel on the weekends is a bit of gravy, right, that comes from. Think upside down in vacation ownership. This is all about happy vacations, and people have bought their vacation ownership, and those dollars are coming out of personal wallet, not coming out of expense accounts. And this is where I think a lot of students don't have they don't have a very healthy understanding of what timeshare is. They've heard maybe some of the negative connotations of it, but the beauty of this business model is, in every market, almost every market except for Orlando, our demand has rebounded as strong as if we were before COVID. So in destination markets like Gatlinburg, Myrtle Beach, Galveston, those place Branson, Missouri to a certain degree where they're a destination and people feel safe in that environment, right? The concept of going to the mountains and being out feels a bit secluded, and it feels like a healthy place to go. And when you lock up, especially Americans, for 2-3 months at a time, there is a lot of pent up, I need to get the heck out of the house and spend time with my family in a safe environment. So for us, we've seen huge rebound in some markets. Now, someplace like Orlando that is so driven by the theme park markets, that's been very, very slow to come back. And so suffering kind of the same way as the other leaders here. So we've had to look at it. In many cases, we have more demand than we can handle because we don't have enough staffing in some of those peak locations. Because who would have thunk that with 20 million people out of jobs that we'd have trouble finding people wanting to work in hospitality. So I think what's a little bit different is the market unto itself. And I think I agree with Gary and Raj that there will be lasting impact from this one, and we're all still trying to figure out what that's going to be. Kind of an interesting story to parallel this. We always say this is unprecedented, but if you look far enough back, we as humans have endured through some of these things. The story was around the turn of the 20th century. It was not uncommon for one-room schoolhouses and for there to be one water pump and there be a ladle, if you will, that everybody drank out of the same ladle to get water out of the hand pump. Cholera kind of put a really quick stop to that when everybody figured out that they were transferring these diseases through drinking vessels. And so, nobody would ever think about drinking from somebody else's cup now. So it could either be something as mild as we never ever shake hands again, or maybe even something more permanent in our industry, like what does hygiene and sanitation look like in our guest units? And I think that's what probably most of us here in the business are wrestling with today, because it just became a very, very expensive endeavor, and one that's very subjective, because no matter how clean we get it, the fears that somebody carries across the threshold with them are going to be part of the interpretation of is this a safe place for me and safe for the environment? So it definitely has business implication that's probably different than where we were with 9/11, because that was, and even in 08 and 09, because those were about things that were outside of our hotels and properties. We were impacted by it, but we didn't necessarily have direct influence. This is very real today, affecting our people who work in the resorts and the emotions and attitudes that our customers have, and they expect us to do something different about it. So this one's definitely different.
Absolutely. I think Doc started it off well where, and Gary picked up on it too, comparing to a hurricane. It always seems so horrible coming in and wondering what it's going to do. And eventually we all get out of it, and guess what? We're fine. And sometimes forget to look back. So we're definitely, let's just say I'm not going to forecast whether we're in the beginning, middle, or end of the storm, but we will all get through this. And in case we don't have an opportunity to bring it up with the larger group, I did want to mention, as we move to the next section, that we're going to start talking about things that are done a little bit differently. And interestingly enough, Holiday Inn Club Vacations is looking for students now to go work in markets at those places where Brent says that they need help, and they're offering housing for you all for that fall internship opportunity. So you can go check that out on their website, Holiday Inn Club Vacations. But let's talk a little bit. The panelists and I had an opportunity to talk before this call, and we were talking about what the different organizations or they individually are having to do, and what it means for students. So Gary, why don't we start with you? You mentioned what you do on Saturday mornings and how that's different than what you do on Thursday evenings, and then we'll let Raj come in with some of his stories as well.
I love the hotel business. I would do it all over again. I'd start with that. That's the same thing I tell every orientation class, that if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And I absolutely loved my 37 years with Hyatt. We had a staff at Grand Cypress where about 525 full-time FTEs, full-time employees. We now have 84. And what does that mean? That means when you're running 10 or 15% occupancy, you're okay. But when the weekends come and you're running 50% occupancy, you can't call back people. So we've all learned to, and very willingly, and I really enjoy doing it. I'm the director of sales and marketing, but on Saturday mornings from 9 to about 3, I'm the bell captain. So I stand there at the bell desk and I pick up the phone, guest service. This is Gary. I'll be happy. We'll send a bellman right up to your room. Or I stand there and we only have 2 bellmen working and you got a couple hundred check-ins. Well, there's nobody there. I'm sorry, sir, you cannot have that bell cart, but let me get it up to your room. Let me get your room number. So we've all had to do that. And I've got a great general manager who leads by example. I'm so proud to work for Paul Joseph. He is everywhere. And so when you see your leader work as hard as he does and on the floor as much as he does, and then every day at 4 o'clock, we go up to housekeeping, we meet in the housekeeping department, and the 5 or 6, 7 people who are managers who are working, we all go up to guest rooms and we clean guest rooms for an hour. So, that's the flexibility you have to have right now. And if you don't have that type of attitude, you won't be there. You have to be able to do multiple things that you haven't done for many years or you've never done. And and it gives me a lot more appreciation for what the housekeepers go through. And Raj, I'm sure with being in room side, the housekeeping is one of the hardest jobs in the hotel business. So that's what I do and I enjoy it.
Thanks, Gary. Raj, you had some really funny things you were sharing with us yesterday. You want to tell the students about what you do when you're not in charge of rooms?
Sure. So typically Sundays are heavy departure days in the hotels. So one of the things we're doing is at Lowe's Hotels is that we are leaving the rooms vacant for 24 hours before we go in and enter the room, just for health safety purposes. So Mondays, we like to call it our Monday party. So myself, the general manager, Jonathan Barisano, and our director of food and beverage, as well as our executive chef has been known to do it a couple of times as well. We will all go and assist housekeeping every Monday, and we will remove trash and linen from all the rooms. We get there before the room attendant so that the room attendant can get in there and be as efficient as possible. But also I will do that as I'm a front desk agent simultaneously. So I'll come in the morning at 6, work the front desk until 10 a.m. when the front office manager arrives. Then I go and join the housekeeping Monday party. And then I'll return to the front desk to cover my front office manager's lunch and then go back to housekeeping. So this is kind of the environment we're in right now. As Gary mentioned, we have team members on furlough, and you can't just bring them back for 2 days and then put them back on furlough. So, this is kind of the environment we have to live in where everyone is rolling up their sleeves and getting it done. So it's, there's definitely some entertaining days where I'll be covered in sweat and then realize I have to run down to the front desk, go do some check-ins, and the guests are looking at me like, why are you so sweaty? I'm just like, oh, it's just hot.
Well, and it certainly is the way that the lodging industry is. And I think we would all agree. And, those of us that have been involved in it, it's the learning to say yes because somebody asked, not because you knew if you could do it or not, right? But if you get asked or you're given an opportunity, you take it on, and, people are going to support you and help you get through it. If anybody's ever been out to Orange Lake, Brent was based out of there for a long time and constantly running. So Brent, I'm sure you've got 1 or 2 unique stories you can share about what somebody with your title and experience has had to do in the current environment.
Yeah, I think if for the students here, hopefully you're hearing the theme being hospitality is very much a hands-on. It's probably one of the most well-planned businesses that then never goes by plan. And you find the word pivot being the thing we're accustomed to do. I think a lot of times, if operations is the path that you would take, if your vision is to be a director of a function or a general manager of a property, it is really ensuring that your commitment is, I'm always going to have my sleeves rolled up, and I'm going to be leaning forward into unexpected situations. and probably everybody here who's been a general manager can tell you stories from just the crazy things that guests do to suicides on properties to fires. I literally had an email today from one of the general managers that was describing a dumpster fire at his property, and I had to open it because I didn't know whether he was being literal or figurative, and a problem at his resort, right? Literal dumpster fire. So it is definitely a pivot. For me, kind of above the property now, thinking about how do we support a network of general managers trying to survive in a myriad of different situations and different job markets. It's been trying to rethink ways of how can we creatively staff? What is the balance between taking services away from the customer because we don't have enough staff to do it, and still balancing a memorable and valuable stay experience? Trying to offer up creative things, right? As you heard Dr. Amy say earlier, we need people to move around. And for Doc Terry and I that go back far enough, we know, and Gary, we go back, it used to be that if you wanted to make it in the hospitality industry, you were probably picking up and moving every 18 months, 2 years, 3 years, and you moved around a lot and you really paid your dues, and that was how you worked up. I wouldn't say that's necessarily the path that you have to take today, but I can tell you, if you were looking to springboard in an industry right now, the ability to pick up and go mobile right now would like rocket fuel your opportunities, because we've seen the business will come back in pockets, not across the whole country, and needs will change and things will pivot. And I've literally almost begged people to say, be willing to move around with us a little bit and we'll take care of you, but here's where we have a need in order to drive the business. And so we are doing things like, in some cases, free housing, stipends to go and work, right? Expenses, you need to just go here. But guess what? You're probably going to be standing next to Gary doing hospital corners on a bed, because that's what we need right now in order to move. So trying to find ways right now is what I've been working on, kind of not the normal job is, all right, what are new ways to get people to move, to find creative ways to staff. We're working with contingent labor companies we never probably would have in the past, repurposing jobs and people in creative ways, and all of that, trying to do it to keep the wheels on the car now, but then also say, as we do project to come out of this, what's the next pivot going to have to be ready? So spending a lot of time, fingers on keyboard, thinking about, what are strategies, what are contingencies, what are risk factors of when we do ask people to travel, right? Does that bring on more risk to us because we've asked somebody to move and maybe put themselves in a little bit greater risk? And so trying to mitigate that as well as we move forward. So definitely it's a dynamic industry to begin with, and then you throw challenges like this and it exercises every skill and experience that you have, and calls upon the network to come together to solve it creatively.
Thank you. Thanks for that. So we've got 1 minute before we move into our breakout rooms. And so while I'm sure Stephanie already has that set up for us, but what I'd like to do is just give each of our panelists our final question that we talked about, and I'm going to ask you to compress it into a 15 to 20 second answer so we can use up that last minute. So with everything that we've heard, what guidance would you give to students? Some of you have already done that, but those that are in the lodging track, either in their current studies, we didn't hear too much about that, or as they seek employment in the current environment. So let's see, I don't think that I asked Raj to start anything yet. So you're up, Raj.
All right. As far as seeking employment, right now, obviously we've all mentioned, there's a lot of team members on furlough and stuff. So my recommendation is find a good company that has growth opportunities, even if they're, relocating, much as Brent has mentioned, and just prove yourself, and so that you stand out, and then that's how you're going to be able to move up as quickly as you would like in this current climate.
Perfect. Knowing that company, guys, is so important, and knowing why you picked that company. Everybody likes big brands, but you demonstrating that you know something about it and you've spent some time investing in that's really good advice. Thank you, Raj. Gary, how about you? 20 seconds.
I think right now just be patient until business comes back because there may not be hospitality jobs available right now, but just be patient. There will be in the future.
All right, thank you. And Brent, can I ask you maybe to bring it in from those that are still studying? So maybe not looking for a job right now, but as they're doing their lodging track or considering their coursework, what should they be doing?
Yeah, definitely be looking for internships if you haven't done that. Even if it's not a full-blown internship, get networking, connect with people like me and Gary and Raj, and ask great questions about what are the specific skills that maybe you're not studying right now that you want to make sure that you are that you're tracking against. And if you're questioning at any given point, why am I studying this? I can't imagine I'll ever use it. That's a pretty scary place to be. Please reach out and ask how somebody in the industry is using that skill today so that you don't shortchange yourself. I still can't believe today that being in operations, how much I still fall back and need to be great at finance, because so much of what we're doing every day is having to move the numbers and partner. So look for internships, and if not, at least connect with us so that we're having some conversations through LinkedIn or on other things. We're always happy to answer those questions and help support students.
Great, thank you very much. Cynthia, I'll turn it over to you to introduce the breakout sessions.
Yes, so wonderful. Thank you so much, panel. And now if you've had a chance to kind of, listen to the things that have been discussed, appreciate so much the industry perspectives and expertise. We're going to move into a breakout room. There'll be 3 of them. And the students, faculty, and staff, you don't have to do anything. What will happen is a little window will come up on your screen, and you can press it and then enter into the breakout room. And we have 3 of them, with one with each of our guests, with an appropriate faculty member. And there'll be some conversation starters, but once you're in there, you have the opportunity to ask specific questions at that time. And then that'll be about 8 minutes or so, not that long. And then automatically you'll be returning back into this forum. And then we'll just take a few final questions and then we'll adjourn. So with that, just stay tuned, and Stephanie will put us into our breakout room. See you soon. So you should see a little screen on your laptop or desktop, and you just go ahead and join.
Stephanie, it doesn't look like I have Brent in here.
You haven't joined your room. Brent is in breakout room with Cynthia right now. You have not joined yours.
I didn't get the message.
With you being on a cell phone, I don't know how.
No, I'm not on my cell phone anymore. Can you force me there?
Let me see what I can do. Let me see what I can do.
Here we go. Thank you.
Sure. You can continue while we wait for people to join, gentlemen.
Okay. Any other questions, Diego, for me?
For you, Gary, we actually covered all of the questions that I wanted to ask you. Let's say out of all of your hotel experiences that you've had, because you've worked in so many different cities and hotel types and so forth, what was the most pleasant or let's say the experience that you enjoyed the most and where you also learned the most?
I've loved every city, all 9 cities that I've lived in over my career. Maui is a special place. The people there are special people there. So Maui was, definitely a special place to live. But I've loved everywhere. I love the culture of Miami. I love the big city of Chicago and Atlanta. I love the small towns of Savannah and Greenville. I've been very fortunate. Again, when I left 37 years ago from Chicago, I haven't had to shovel snow in 37 years. So I'm very happy about that, which is also a great thing about the hotel industry. If you want to transfer around, there's hotels in, Boise, Idaho. If that's where you want to live, there's a hotel there and you can work there. But it just, every day there's, as Raj, as you know, that every day there's something new, a new group coming in out, a new leisure guest that's checking in, a different season, different festival going on. It's a great industry. Again, both my kids worked and my wife had worked for Hyatt for a while too. So, I do it all over again.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I hope the breakout rooms were fun and interesting and you got to meet each other a little bit. Let me just pin myself here really quick. I want to thank our guests, Mr. Reynolds, Mr. Gottling, and Mr. Mehta. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and for your willingness to spend time with us. One of the challenging things right now with the pandemic is this forcing us to be in this virtual space. And, we've been called upon to do our best to outreach to students, whether they're able to be with us on this call right now or later on, be able to watch the recording. So this is a big service that you're doing for the college. And on behalf of our faculty, I really want to thank you for that. I don't see any questions right this moment, but I do want to ask a question from our panel. As we are preparing right now, the faculty and staff that's on this call, as we're preparing for our students, the content of our courses, especially in the lodging track, there's a feeling of that I've heard among us is about, what percentage of content do we bring in that's COVID related, without turning our courses into all COVID courses, because it's really important also to get those basic key learnings in there. But from your side, from being in the industry, could you talk a little bit, roughly a minute or so each, can you just mention about your perspective of, a good ratio of COVID learnings with the key learnings that would be in any course in a regular time?
Hey, it's Brent. I'll start. My gut reaction to this is I think COVID is just another dimension of business, right? It's similar to other things that cause the same cascade of things to happen in management decisions that need to be made, right? COVID, yes, is cutting back on business, right? There's other constraints that make that happen from time to time. So I think it deserves a mention, and it's a great case study for current moment. But my gut reaction would be is that I don't think I'd go altering my course specifically with COVID, but there's certainly some great learnings out of it that accentuate skills that are most likely already very well represented within your course track.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Thank you.
My thought is that this too will pass, but I don't think we know what life is going to be like after COVID. So I would probably say you may want to wait to see how business takes place. Will groups have more Zoom Teams presentations, and will that reduce numbers of attendees? So I don't know if we know what it's going to bring yet. I know what it brings right now, which is a reduction in business and the fear that people don't want to travel in groups like that. But you may end up in a year from now saying, you know, no, we definitely need a COVID class or pre or post-COVID class because this is how the industry has changed. I don't know if we know that change yet, how it's going to change.
Point, Gary.
Yeah, no, great point. I also think it depends on the course. So for instance, like facilities management, to me, that does seem like a course that I would put some emphasis on COVID there, right? Knowing what the right cleaning products is. You know, when we temporarily suspended our operations, you know, we were running around the hotels trying to figure out what chemicals are okay to use and which ones aren't. And these are things we had to figure out. You know, and so I think the facilities course, and then also I think, you know, perhaps sales tactics and strategies, because, you know, one of the big things that we're emphasizing on is that we want our customers to feel safe. And so when it comes to those sales tactics, you know, you want to vocalize all of the health safety features right now in the current industry, right? In our current environment, that is a sales tactic, is letting people know how safe we are. So I think there needs to touch on that as well, to a point. And then as Gary mentioned, you know, as things progress, so maybe, you know, you might have to alter that coursework from this semester and next semester to the following year, you know, your courses in 2022.
All very good points. Thank you for that. I see we're nearing the end, but we did have a student question, which I want to ask. With concepts including contactless interactions and personal hygiene, how are hotels restructuring and or resizing their departments to satisfy their guest needs?
I'll take it from the sales point of view that a lot of it's dependent on the revenues that are brought in, which means how many full-time employees you can have. I went from a staff of 16 down to 4. So it depends on the revenues. Will we ever look the same? Not in the near future. We have all learned how to do our own administrative work and systems administrators and print, sign, scan, send back. I've got my printer over here. So we've all learned that. So I think it's going to be just a learning experience as we go forward. Like Raj said, I like your point, Raj, about doing about the facilities. I think that was a good point that, you know, how do we keep that? Brent, what you said is that, or maybe Raj, you said that we let a room sit for 24 hours before we check somebody back in, and we go back in with a Clorox sprayer and do all the rooms. So we're going to learn a lot here when people feel safe to travel again.
Yeah, I think that's it. So Lucas, I think the answer is we're still trying to figure this all out right now. I would say I can say in my operations, we are reacting more to trying to keep the wheels on and keep enough people staffed and still figuring out this, how to keep things clean. In some cases, we've added headcount, right? Because it's just like, okay, we need bodies there to inspect rooms, to do the extra things we need to do. We need people monitoring pool decks, right, in order to maintain distancing, because OSHA is out starting to do investigations now. So I'd say if in some cases we've gotten bigger, some cases like in sales, we've pared down because there's nobody there. I think we don't know yet. I think we got another 6 to 12 months before we see truly what a new norm is. And there will absolutely, I believe, be some level of restructuring, resizing. I do think there's a push right now for contactless. I think it's the same thing that hotels have wanted for a while, trying to reduce some of the staffing levels with guests. Now it's just got more energy behind it because now it's a good story if we can do a contactless. All I can say is that it's the same problem with technology. It all sounds good. Trying to implement some of this stuff is a real challenge. And so we'll see if that changes maybe the check-in procedures a bit, but way too early yet, I think, to tell.
You know, keyless entry is a big plus for hotels that have it, because again, you're going away, like you just said, right, getting away from the contact of that. So I think what will happen in our industry, we'll learn, is that a lot of those technology things will accelerate. And hotels will have to say, I have to have keyless entry. So I get my information, I get my room is 1510 on my phone. I don't even have to check the front desk. I go right up to my room, scan it, and I'm in. That's what people are going to want more and more of.
No, and not to overlook what we talked about yesterday as we were preparing for all of this, but Raj, you brought up a good point that the students have a role in how we come back and being stewards in that area for following the guidelines and doing the things and talking it up among their among their peers and their age groups and people that they interact with, so that the hospitality industry can survive in the new way that we do things.
Yeah, well, 100%. Obviously, I'm passionate about that. And then, I think, they both touched on it. Technology is going to be a big piece moving forward. And some of it almost seems kind of silly that we hadn't made these steps already. For us, our dining and activities guides and our maps, we have now gone paperless, and we have a link that we simply text to our guests. And it's almost kind of funny because it makes me realize, like, we've been printing all these papers, and every time we have to make a change, now we're handing out, if we have to make a change mid-month and pivot, we're having incorrect information, versus now it's literally just a link that we text to our customer, and all the information is up to date. All of our menus, hours of operation, maps, everything is on there. And it's almost makes us wonder, like, why didn't we think of this before?
So I think to add on to that, Raj, I think something I know just kind of looking at our company is our legal perspective, right? Or our risk aversion has changed as a result of COVID, right? So we've wanted to be texting. We don't quite have the base technology in place yet to do it on a reliable way. But the other factor is just because, you got to opt into everything, right? A legal perspective that's very conservative. You throw some hard times like this at things, and all of a sudden your willingness to take on a little bit more risk and exposure tends to change. So I think that has helped us in particular do some things that we never would have done before, just by different perspective.
Yeah, but that's a good point from a legal, because we absolutely do have to get them to opt in order for us to send them that text.
Fantastic. That was great. Thank you so much for your perspectives, and there'll be a lot of faculty on this call, giving you all a call for some content and some follow-up. And Brent, did you have something that you?
Yeah, Cynthia, just real quick, I wanted to throw out there one thing I don't see on the track, but it may be part of the general business course, is procurement and resource management. I think I see a lot of people struggle with that one. It is a complex science, and it's as much as COVID is impacting us, our trade, our international trade situation is having a profound effect on how we operate as well. As you know, in vacation ownership, we renovate units every 6, 12, and 18 years. And I got to tell you, it's been a real kicker, because depending on where you source FF&E from and these supplies, COVID has complicated it with supply chain as well as international trade wars. And so perhaps if there was some curriculum around that, and strategic and I think tactical as well, is knowing how to pivot within and change sources, and to be able to think about having par levels and pre-planning and having some contingency management, because running out of sheets can have the same effect as not having enough people to run your resort.
Right. Thanks for that. We do have a procurement class within our department, not under this track, but it is within our department. And we're also currently building out a master's certificate in hospitality supply chain management. So we are on the forefront of that. That's coming up, and we'll share all that information. But for now, again, thank you to all of our guests. Thank you to our faculty. Thank you to the students. This Zoom will be followed up. I will send out a link so that all of you have this conversation. We can put these in our courses. We'll put these on the Rosen website. We have a YouTube channel. And then we also have some of the various links that we had been listing for some of the opportunities that our guests have spoken about. This right here on the screen is the lodging track link, the page. And Doc Terry, who was one of our faculty leaders, his email is right there if you would like to email or call him. We also have a lot of advisors on this Zoom so that they are also available to help any of you. So with that, thank you for staying over a few extra minutes, and I really appreciate your time. Thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raj.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Always a pleasure, Doc.
Thank you.